This is Zestology. I'm Tony Wrighton, walking down a relatively quiet road in Thailand, although that very loud moped just went past me. And today I'm looking at how light impacts your health.
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm an author, presenter at Sky Sports, and years ago I went to the jungle and got ill. Very ill. So this is my podcast adventure to find more energy. It's packed with biohacking, science, health tech, supplements, and some of the most well-known experts on the planet.
This is something I spent 4 months of my life doing with electrodes glued to my head so that you can do a lifetime worth of meditation.
Decide what you don't give a fuck about, which is something you don't care about.
Some of it gets quite out there.
I had some stem cells sent up to my house that I had stored, and then I injected myself with mannitol.
And we even hack hangovers.
Alcohol is poisonous. So is water and oxygen in the wrong dosage.
So that's my podcast, Zestology. Live life with energy, vitality, and motivation.
Hello again. My Asian Zestology adventure continues. I mean, I'm not just here for Zestology, I'm here with my family. We're here for 3 months. My son's at school here. He's absolutely loving it. The one thing he doesn't love is Thai class. They do a Thai class every day, which sounds so lovely. And they do Thai music, they're learning to draw Thai letters, and they are learning various Thai words as well. I think the reason he doesn't like it is because it's hard. He's not even four, and he's learning another language, and that's difficult. But he's doing very well, and he's enjoying life, and he loves it there. And yes, you're just hearing the sounds of Thailand as I walk around recording these podcast intros. And today's podcast is all about how light affects and impacts your health. If I sound like I'm not making sense, it is very hot. Andy Mant is the founder and CEO of Bond Charge, which you might have heard me talking about over the last couple of months or so. A company specialising in advanced light filtering eyewear and loads of other stuff too. Some really genuinely impressive products based around EMFs, light. I love their light bulbs. Their torches I've ordered but I haven't used yet. There's so many impressive different elements to what they're doing, and really it's a sort of biohacker site. I mean, that's what it is. So it's well worth checking out, and I would love to know what you think, being a listener to this podcast. And if you go to bondcharge.com/Tony, all the details are there. But Andy, I so enjoyed getting to know Andy and talking to him because he is a fellow geek and one of the world's top experts now on light and what it does to you. And I, being a fellow sort of small business entrepreneur, although I think Andy's been a little bit more successful on the business front than I have, it's certainly built a bigger business in terms of the amount of revenue they clear. I admire how he doesn't cut corners. He doesn't get things made on the cheap. That is very clear, not only from their products, but from having read all about them as well. They get everything made far more expensively than if they were to ship it in from abroad. They use the best materials, and you can tell that when you use things like the glasses, you can tell that it's a bit redder, blocks more light, a bit sturdier, that sort of thing. So all of that counts. And just a very passionate, slightly geeky human being who I enjoy talking to. So I'm going to carry on my stroll, and here is Andy Mant on Zestology. Andy, how you doing?
I am great, Tony. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, really good to talk to you. So you're in Australia, I'm in Thailand. What time is it with you right now?
I reckon it might be the same time as you, coming up to about 4:30 in the evening.
Oh, okay. You're 1 hour ahead of me.
An hour ahead.
And you are representing Bond Charge at the moment as well. What are those? So what time do you start wearing those glasses from?
Oh, well, I'm wearing the yellows right now. And I start wearing those around about sort of 2 in the afternoon. I typically don't do much computer work in the mornings. I tend to like the natural light in the mornings. That helps to sync my circadian rhythm right up until about solar noon. And then it becomes a bit of a problem after that for our circadian rhythms. So I slip on the yellow lens glasses, helps bring the correct light messages to my circadian rhythm, keeps it all in check. And then when that sun sets in the evening and I finish watching it, I'll switch over to the amber red lenses that block up to 550 nanometers, and that helps lower my cortisol levels, jack up my melatonin, and get me ready for sleep.
Okay, are these the ones that I've brought to Thailand? These ones?
Those ones, yeah, those bad boys.
They're good. They're good. I find they're harder core than some blue blocking. I think they really work well and they block it all out.
They are, yeah. That's a good point you've raised there, because a lot don't actually block in line with the peer-reviewed studies. It's a really interesting study, actually. It came out in 2002 called the Action Spectrum of Melatonin Suppression, a Novel Photoreceptor. And it did some really interesting analysis and studies, clinical trials on what specific frequencies of light actually disrupt our melatonin. And they found this real distinct banding between 400 nanometers and 550 nanometers. And when you test a lot of blue light glasses, the cheapo pairs you get on Amazon or eBay, a lot of them will only block up to about 500 nanometers. So you're leaving a lot of light that disrupts your melatonin still coming through those. And when we designed our glasses, we wanted to make sure it was precisely 100% blocked within that banding, not drop more or drop less, just right in that sweet spot. And yeah, I think they've revolutionized that blue light blocking market space, because they're actually doing what they say on the tin.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you a lot about, obviously, about the glasses and the products that you do. In fact, I've been Googling, and I know that you deliver to Thailand, because now that we've got a place here, I need to sort out the lighting. And the light bulbs is just one of the things that's really hard to find. If you get good quality light in the evening, it feels like you're walking around in the sort of, as a caveman, you've got the campfire in the distance. And that is something I think you guys do so well, and I absolutely love them.
Yeah, absolutely. Great point again. It doesn't just come down to blue light passing through your eyes. A lot of people don't seem to understand fully that melanopsin, which is your blue light photoreceptor, is actually present in your skin as well. So if you're wearing blue light blocking glasses in an evening and you've got artificial standard LED lighting, that's still going to disrupt your melatonin levels somewhat, and impact your circadian rhythms within your skin, even if you're wearing the blue light glasses. So what we've done is we've created circadian friendly lighting, which has stripped out all the blue components. So after dark, you're only seeing what your ancestors would have saw all those hundreds of thousands of years ago, which is ultimately when our circadian rhythm was evolved and was processed. We're living in this world now of tons of artificial suns with an ancient circadian rhythm. And it's just scrambling our hormonal systems, disrupting our sleep, leading to stress and other chronic issues. Flicker's another issue in modern lighting as well. Flicker can cause neurological issues, as we've seen in countless studies. And when you video your house lights or office lighting in slow motion on your smartphone, you can play it back to yourself, you're going to see some horrible flicker. And we've managed to strip that out of our lighting as well.
Great. Yeah. Oh, do you know what? There's quite a lot to geek out on, actually, because I have gone properly down the rabbit hole around lighting, which is why it's been so good to meet you guys, and work with you as well. But just before I get onto that, we are really careful around my son at bedtime, and we've got a lovely blue blocked light in his room. And then he likes a little light on at night, and this is like a light that just makes sure that it's just it's perfect perfect frequency for him. But if we need to move around in his bedroom, because we share a bed with him at the moment, we'll put our torch on. And it's just occurred to me that is not necessarily good for him, even though he's asleep.
Yeah, absolutely. There's two things there you need to look at. Firstly, get a torch that emits red light. We offer one of those as well.
Do
so
you?
You can use that in.
No
yeah,
way.
We do.
Really? Okay.
Red light emitting torch.
That's amazing. I'm getting one of them.
Little tiny
to
things.
Thailand next week.
Yeah, done. Where was I going with that one? So yeah, that's an issue. But actually, there are studies that show that whilst you're sleeping, so melatonin is produced in the build-up to sleep. It works in the gut. Serotonin, tryptophan, absence of blue and green light up to 550 nanometers will boost that melatonin production. But it really peaks in the early hours of the morning, sort of between 2 a.m., 3 a.m., that sort of time, when you've got an optimal circadian rhythm. And when you look at some other studies, when you actually are asleep, blue light that's present in your environment, so that could be from getting up in the night to switch a torch on, using the bathroom. Maybe it's even a gap in your curtains where car headlights and street lamps are shining through. Actually disrupts circadian rhythm. And it makes sense, right? Because as I said earlier, it's not just your open eyes that receives messages from light, it's actually your skin as well. So you've got to be careful when you're asleep what kind of light you're exposed to. Now, there was a really interesting study that was also released maybe about 5 or 6 years ago that showed that blood glucose levels were actually increased if people slept in rooms that contained artificial lighting. So that could be anything from the devices that I've mentioned, but also your smartphone, if that's not on airplane mode and messages are coming through or alerts, that lights up and illuminates the room as well. So you've got to be careful, not just from a sleep standpoint, but also from a metabolic standpoint as well. If you're having a hard time perhaps processing carbohydrates or losing weight, it may not be the type of food you're eating. It may be an underlying issue with the blood glucose levels in your body being impacted by the type of light in your environment.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, we wouldn't have any light on in the middle of the night, but my son then would just wake you up more because he sort of can't see me next to him. So it needs to be a little bit blue blocked.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, Tony. What we got to look at is you've got two ways to solve this issue, right? So the major issue we're dealing with is our modern day world, right? We're mixed matched in it. Like our body, our evolution has gone at a certain rate, and the technological and cultural revolution's gone through the roof. So basically, we're not in sync and not in harmony. So you've got two options. You go and live in the middle of a field in a tent somewhere with absolutely no technology, or you can look at biohacking your environment. And this is, one of the reasons that we've obviously got introduced, because you're biohacking that environment. You're going, right, my son's going to wake up in the night, but, we don't want blue light in his environment. So how can we put red light in? Because we know red light, doesn't disrupt, melatonin, circadian rhythms. We wear blue light blocking glasses in the evening. We utilize red light therapy to help heal and restore any of the cellular mitochondrial damage that blue light may have caused. We use cold therapy to help reduce inflammation, along with grounding and earthing from perhaps EMF emitting issues that we have in our environment from Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc. So, I think it's always about, technology is an amazing thing. We're having an amazing conversation now via the internet, and I don't ever want to take that away from people. It's all about finding ways to manage that amazing technology so we're not destroying our health.
Yeah, and that is it's such a hard thing to manage. There was something you mentioned a few minutes ago. You said in the morning you like to get all that natural light, and you don't like to look at a laptop in the morning. Well, in an ideal world, would do the same thing. But I do my best work in the morning, and there's not enough hours in the day otherwise. And I know your business is going well. Surely you don't only look at a laptop for 3 hours a day.
No, absolutely not. There will be times when I'll need to utilize a laptop in the morning. Okay. I mean, I have a lot of people that are empowered by, sort of the education I give them to be able to do the work for me in certain areas. But when you want to utilize a laptop in the morning, you just need to biohack your workstation. So there's a few issues that are going to come with working on a laptop. Number one is Wi-Fi. Okay, so that is, disrupting our body from a cellular mitochondrial level. It's not in line with Schumann resonance. So the positive ions that are emitted by, wireless networks can cause cellular issues. So you want to be plugging your laptop into an Ethernet cable and turning your Wi-Fi off. That's the first hack I'd be using. From a light perspective, the light that's emitted from your laptop is basically going to mimic solar noon in terms of the Kelvin level and the intensity of the light. So anything that requires working on a laptop up until that time, you probably want to be installing software onto your computer, such as Iris or f.lux, in order to reduce the blue level down or even balance the type of light that's present in your laptop. The issue with artificial light emitting devices like your TV and your smartphone and your laptop is not so much the blue light, it's the lack of balance of the light. So it's stripped of all its restorative red frequency, and it's just, massive spike in blue light, which then what causes the ocular damage and the eye strain when you're using your computer during the morning. let alone the disruption to the circadian rhythm. So what you need to do is balance the light. If you don't have those softwares installed on your computer, get some red light around your laptop when you're using it in the morning. So you've got those restorative frequencies. Nature's incredible, right? The sun emits blue light. It does exactly what the artificial blue light does. It causes you to feel alert and awake, but it also causes damage at cellular level. But what the sun has in it that artificial light doesn't is red light, which then restores and brings back balance to your metabolic system by offering a restoration of cells rather than just having the isolation of blue, which is causing the alertness, but also the cellular damage as well. There's also other things you can do, from a sort of inflammatory perspective. If you're using your laptop during the day and exposing yourself to a lot of artificial blue light, maybe do so while you're grounded. If you can sit outside with your bare feet on the earth whilst working, you can do that. If you can't do that, then just get regular breaks outside. You can go and ground to the earth to reduce the inflammation levels, but also being outside without sunglasses on for a couple of breaks in the morning from your laptop will help give the correct light signals to your circadian rhythm to keep that hormonal profile balanced during the day. So there's ways around it. There's always ways to hack everything. My preference is not to work in the morning, but as you rightly said, sometimes I've got to. And when I do so, I just take the ultimate biohacking precautions to do so without wreaking havoc on my body.
Yeah. I think for me as well, there's another thing which isn't probably indirectly related to light, and that is a day spent moving a lot, even if it's just low level sort of messing about with the family or just walking to the shops or just walking a lot, I feel good. And when I don't move enough, and I guess that movement is normally outside, I just feel like I haven't lived on that particular day. And that isn't very compatible with laptops. And my biggest business is selling books. And there's a certain amount of writing that you can do moving around, actually. You can do some first draft stuff with dictation, but then it needs a lot of sitting in front of a laptop to tidy it up afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my good friends, you'll probably know him. He was at the Health Optimization Summit, Chris Gethin. We interviewed him on our podcast a couple of years back as well. And during the whole interview, he was on this treadmill, literally recording the podcast. I don't know how I get. I don't know how I get along with doing that. I think I'd be all over the place. But that's something he's obviously well involved in, and he obviously wants that movement side as part of his biohacking protocol. So I guess there are ways around it, but I'd imagine that would probably cost a lot of money. But regular breaks is probably good, because it's difficult when we have these conversations, because the likes of yourself, myself and Chris as an example, we're quite extreme in what we do. And I always like to say to people, don't be anxious or stressed about trying to hit the levels that three of us are trying to hit in biohacking off the bat. Everyone's at a different stage of their journey. And if you're just starting out, just implement some very, simple biohacks, like some blue light blocking glasses, maybe powering down your devices an hour before bed, maybe trying some grounding and earthing, and then see how that makes you feel. When you start seeing those benefits, you can start building up to the more sort of extreme biohacks, like, we've just spoken about, which, would seem daunting to someone straight off the bat from, starting their biohacking journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you need to come to the Health Optimization. I know it's a long way away from you, so pretty much around the earth, but you need to come to the Health Optimization Summit this year.
I do. I really do. I'm actually in the States when it's on. I think it's June, maybe July this year. And Tim does WhatsApp me quite a bit about coming over, but it just hasn't aligned. But it will have to soon, and hopefully one day brings it to Australia, and then that will be a lot easier. So
that'll be perfect. Yeah. So listen, I'm going to place an order for one of these torches and your light bulbs as soon as we get off this call. And tell me a bit more about the business then and your life, because I'm fascinated partly from a health perspective, partly from a zestology perspective, and partly from a very personal perspective, because you've built this kind of really successful biohacking business. And I want to know how it all came about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it came about actually the whole journey started about 10 years ago, right? I was incredibly overweight. I was about 185 pounds, which, and I'm only 5'7", so that's a lot for me, which is about sort of 85 kilos maybe. I'll do both to help out the metric and non-metric people.
Yeah.
And I was like trying all sorts of protocols to try and lose this weight, right? Like let's do low fat, let's exercise more, let's listen to the government and what they're telling us, and smash 500 portions of grains a day. And surprise, surprise, that didn't work. And I was getting sick, right? I was having I had appendix problems, I had kidney stones in my mid-20s, like so bad that they had to be surgically removed. Real bad stuff. Wow. Migraines all the time. And I jumped online and found a really cool group on Reddit, like a ketogenic group. And I met a guy on there that I'm really good friends with, literally to this day now, which is fantastic. And we do a lot of work together with his company and mine, a guy called Luis Villaseñor, who's a Mexican guy. You'll probably know him. He's got a good company with Rob Wolf. And I kind of looked at his protocol on ketogenic dieting, and I lost weight so easily, right? Got into shape in a couple of years, and I just then said to myself, well, what can I do to optimize more parts of my body? And probably similar to the way you started out, in so much that you do one thing and then you just go down these rabbit holes, and you just want more and more and more. Then I discovered a guy, Jack Kruse, and his real sort of out there claims. And I was like, wow, this guy's like so like crazy. Let's look into what he's saying, because like none of this can make sense. And the more I looked into it, I was like, wow, actually, this guy's making sense sort of 90% of the time. And I was like, I've got to research this more. So I got a pair of blue blockers to try and like improve my sleep. So it's something I'd always struggled with. And it did, to some extent, help improve my sleep. And then I thought to myself, these are just not fashionable. They're also not optimal as well, because I can still see bits of blue light here. So I thought to myself, right, let's just get to work on creating a new pair. And unlike a lot of other brands, we actually manufacture ours here in an optics lab in Australia. Whereas a lot just get them from, China and, off the conveyor belt, and no testing goes into them, which is sad. And I sent them a load of people, biohackers, that were using blue light glasses, about 20 pairs. And I just said, look, have I got something here? This is the science. This is what you're using at the moment. Let me know what your sleep is. And they're all using like sleep trackers. So everyone came back to me going, you've got something here. You got to sell this stuff. We'll promote it. It's amazing. And that was how the company was born. Wow. And it's done so well to date. We've helped hundreds of thousands of people, which is incredible. We started in the days as Blue Blocks, and the name just no longer fit. So in June 22, we rebranded to Bon Charge, which means good energy, because our customers just wanted more and more from us. And we had this mantra of, we take products, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're going to take products that already exist. We're going to strip them apart, and we're going to rebuild them so they're optimal, because that's what biohacking is all about. It's about optimization. So rather than stick out a red light therapy device that flickers, we remove the flicker and reduce the EMF. Rather than put out bulbs that perhaps are good and emit red light, we wanted to strip the flicker again out of them, instead of having just one pair of blue light glasses and putting marketing on them to be like, yeah, this is one size fits all. These clear glasses will help you sleep. We're like, well, no, you need 3 pairs. You need a clear pair, you need a yellow pair, you need a red pair if you want to do it optimally. And that just led us into all these different avenues. And it's just been an unbelievable journey. And had so much fun doing it.
And so how many have you got employees now?
We've actually got 7 employees. So for the size of our business, which is an 8-figure business turnover each year, that's quite small. But we outsource a lot of our stuff. So we have probably 30 or 40 consultants around the world that work with us from an external basis, because you're just not going to find the talent by hiring everyone, especially in Perth, because it's such a small place. But within your area, we wanted the best people in the world working with us, and we managed to get them, whether they're in the UK, the US, Canada, Europe, EU, all over the world. So probably about 37 to 50 sort of contractors and employees around the world.
And the thing about using contractors is I use a lot of contractors as well. If you're using someone to do everything at once. They might not specialize in a particular area. And sometimes you need something, if you're designing quality sort of biohacking gear, you need experts in that particular area who know exactly what they're talking about. And therefore, it might be a contractor relationship, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, it's not just the engineering side as well. It's one thing that we take very seriously is having all our content medically reviewed as well by board certified practitioners. So every bit of content that's on our website has been rigorously vetted and, I hate to use the word, but fact checked as well. So ensuring that studies are backing it up. I don't mean the Twitter fact checkers. I mean, actual, are there studies supporting your claims, or are you waffling on about a load of marketing BS to try and sell your products, which sets us apart from everyone else because we take this stuff seriously. I live and breathe these products and I want optimal. And to get optimal, I want to make sure that a third party that has no association with our business, he's on the board, medical board in the US, is reviewing our content and putting his name to it as well to say, I've medically reviewed this stuff and
That's great.
in line with.
So yeah, that is absolutely brilliant. Do you think that's because I guess when objections come up to this podcast, there's so much biohacking on it. And obviously I was the host of the Health Optimization Summit and have been associated with biohackers on this podcast a lot, like Dave Asprey. And the objection that comes up is it's all a bit woo-woo and it's not backed by science, which actually isn't really true. But I think to meet that objection, I find in my books, for example, I just reference all the way through with science as much as possible and get that fact checked by, and again, I'm contracting experts who know a lot more about the science than me. Is that what's missing from some biohacking? Just to say, look, this stuff, some of it isn't quantifiable, but a lot of it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with anything, and nutrition's one as well as biohacking, it's always N equals 1. Okay, one size isn't always going to fit all. Okay, your caffeine's a good example. Like if you're a fast or slow metabolizer of caffeine, will dictate when and when you cannot drink it in line with your circadian rhythm. So I think that you've got to apply context to everything you read. I don't think anyone should ever read any kind of biohacking website and go, right, I need to do that because that is what Tony and Andy are saying to do. I say experiment, see how you feel. Are you feeling better when you do that sort of protocol? Is a certain diet good for you? Is carnivore good for you? Is a more balanced diet good for you? Is a lower fat, higher carb diet better for you? I don't know. If you go deep into genetic testing, DNA testing, you'll be able to find out more about you as an individual. It's extremely important. The only issue you've got with studies, and I'm always happy to openly say this, that there's pretty much a study that will support anything you want to see. Okay? And I think it's always important to put both sides of the argument forward, which we typically do quite a lot in our articles, in our blogs, where we'll look at both sides. EMF radiation is an interesting one, right? So it's of my view that EMF radiation is potentially harmful to us at a biological level, but we won't see those effects for many years, okay? However, the evidence that's out there at the moment is scant, and it doesn't particularly support the claims that I particularly believe in. It's one of those things like when smoking came out, I'm sure there weren't studies going around saying the long-term effects of smoking could be an issue. So I think you've got to look at it from a sort of objective standpoint as well, that yes, in some cases studies might not be around, but let's look at some of the theory that's around why this could be bad. And what I don't like about some companies is then the fear-mongering that's put into something that's there on their website, that they're perhaps selling a product. The evidence doesn't back up that it's particularly harmful. However, they would like to cherry-pick some evidence to say, this is bad, better protect yourself from it. When you look at EMF, for instance, on our website, there's not one claim on there that says, it's bad for you. It's saying that, look, the studies are saying it isn't. Right now. However, you might want to take a precautionary approach because of X, Y, and Z. So it's just being sort of upfront to people. I just hate when people choose studies to furnish an agenda without presenting both sides of the argument. And yes, the conclusion can be, that your side of the argument is correct, but at least present some of that other information as well.
And I definitely encourage people to check out the site because Yeah, you've got not just the blue light blocking stuff, but obviously you sell loads of different biohacking products and the EMF stuff, which I am super hot on as well. And I think is brilliant. We're pretty much out of time, but I need to know, what one book would you recommend and one tip for living with more energy? You've given us loads already, but what is one book and one tip?
Oh, for a book, oh my gosh, I've read so many. I'm normally more in tune to studies, because I find that when books are published, a lot of the data becomes sort of a little bit outdated. But I think I'd have to recommend a good friend of mine again. I keep plugging people here. I'm not on commission. I guarantee you. Nicholas Pino, who wrote the tinfoil hat guide to EMF, I believe it's called, or the tinfoil guide to EMF.
Oh, right. I've not heard of that. Sounds brilliant.
Need to read it. Superb guy. He's the host of the global EMF health, EMF Hazard Summit. People like Joe McCullough, Joe Cohen, people like that are presenting at that. I had the privilege of doing it a couple of years ago as well. And his book really goes into the in-depth analysis of EMFs and whether they could be harmful on our health. So definitely check that out. He'd be excellent for your podcast as well. So shoot, brilliant. And I introduce you.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, really good. He's the leading expert on it. In terms of more energy, I think, which is your other question.
Yeah. One tip.
Dial into circadian rhythm. Ensure you're doing everything you can to optimize your circadian clock, and your sleep will improve, which will then really invigorate your energy levels.
And it's great to talk. I've really enjoyed it. People can go to bondcharge.com/Tony, and there's 20% off site-wide. And you even deliver to Thailand. And I know I have 42 listeners in Thailand, so that's good. So there you might get some Thailand orders.
There you go. Incredible. In fact, I think we shipped a sauna blanket there yesterday. So
did you really? Brilliant.
Yeah, we do get a few people up there. A lot of expats, I think, work up there. So a lot order it and have it delivered when they're doing their work up in Thailand.
Brilliant. I've really enjoyed this. Hope we can stay in touch and meet in person at some point. And thanks for coming on.
Thanks for the invite, Tony.
That is it for today's podcast. Thank you to Andy, and my podcast partners today are BondCharge as well. So if you go to bondcharge.com/Tony, remember they ship worldwide, and if you use that code Tony20, you can get 20% off. This podcast, the partners that I have on the podcast, it's not going to make me a millionaire, but it does help pay for the upkeep of the podcast, and for that I am extremely grateful to BondCharge for being my podcast partner, and I'm really grateful to you as well for supporting them as well. Do go and have a look, bondcharge.com/Tony. It is a proper biohackers site. I'm just a quick personal update. I'm going to record a personal update podcast again, maybe next week. But just to say, my book sales in January were way better than any month I've ever had before. Probably up 60% on my previous best month, which is very exciting. I'm writing another book at the moment, which is sort of energy based, but slightly different to anything I've done before. Very different to anything I've done before. And I have to keep checking myself, because I have written in the book that I'm writing this book from Thailand. And then you sort of think, it's not very practical advice, is it? Well, if you want to get more energy and you want to be a bit more revitalised and you want to beat burnout and stress, just go to Thailand for 3 months. It's not on most people's radar, and I'm well aware of that, and I'm very lucky to have that. So I know I'm recording these podcasts from here, but I'm also aware that that is not something that is going to be a long-term advice solution. Right, thank you for listening to Zestology. Thank you, Andy, for coming on. Check out BondCharge. And as I say, a personal update coming maybe next week, maybe the week after. I've enjoyed doing them. I'm going to try and do one a month on them. And I'll go into the book sales in a bit more detail as well. It's been amazing, because my book company publishes books by myself and other people. And January is always a good month, but it feels like all the effort we've put in over the last few years or so is just starting to pay off, and it's very exciting and highly addictive checking your book sales every day. That's it for Zestology. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.